Hi everyone, welcome to the latest Liquidware Chats. In this episode, I sit down with Jarian Gibson. Jarian is the chairperson of the World of EUC, the independent EUC community that was formed earlier this year. Basically, there was a lot of changes within EUC, and with the dissolvement of CUGC, there was kind of a vacuum, and Jarian and a few others decided that they needed to do something, and they formed the World of EUC. So Jarian has been in the EUC industry for about 24 years. He currently works at Nutanix as a senior solutions architect, and we talk about the general state of EUC, and then we look at Jarian's career, and we also look at how they came to form the World of EUC. And finally, we finish with our usual topic of how AI is impacting EUC. Really hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks very much. Before we get into what is the World of EUC and how it came to be, I just wanted to talk to you, Jarian, a little bit about your background and how you ventured into, well, it's been the world of EUC, essentially.
So I've been probably EUC probably 24 years now, late 90s, early 2000s. And so I was working on the customer side, and I was tasked with finding a solution for people out in the field who had to download data every day after the market closed, and they were coming in via dial-up and VPN and that kind of stuff. And I was tasked with finding a better solution. So I was looking things like at Tarantella and back then terminal services, and just right around when MetaFrame 1.8 came out, and Windows 2000 dropped, and a couple other solutions I looked at. Ended up settling on MetaFrame 1.8 and Windows 2000. So the company I was at were still on NT. So I also figured out how to do a migration from NT into Active Directory as well, because I was like, I want to do a group policy. I don't want to deal with the other policy stuff in NT. And then just grew from there. So there at that company, I was, went through the MetaFrame XP and into the MetaFrame 3.0, MetaFrame 4.0, presentation server 4.5, and then from there I kind of got to where I kept trying to make proposals to have the whole company go to Citrix to kind of centralize things instead of having to replace desktops and that kind of stuff, just having me dumb terminals. And my manager at that time, he's like, you know what, you have a job here, but he goes, you need to go out and do more because you have that ambition to do stuff and the stuff that you're doing. So I got into consulting after that. So 5 years with MTM Technologies between Chicago and Austin, and then in Minneapolis. And then I joined Choice Solutions for 5 years, based out of Kansas City. And then I went independent, and I still worked for Choice Solutions for a long time. And then I joined Nutanix. I was doing a lot of Nutanix on Citrix stuff. I presented a few times with Case Baggerman, who's now my manager at Nutanix, as well at like .next and at Synergy, and just ended up, joining Nutanix and working on Citrix and some other EUC solutions on Nutanix as well. So been there about 6 years now.
Cool. Yeah, so you've been there since like MetaFrame 1.8, which I started out probably on MetaFrame 3.0, but then going out to customers who had MetaFrame 1.8, and I'm like, what the hell is this? This is scary. I don't like this. What you want me? Yeah, but yeah, we all know, like, with so many stories from that era. Like, I think one time I went to a place. It was like a council office, and they had 1.8 with Novell, and I was like, what is this Novell stuff? Like, seriously. We actually it was that bad. We had to fly in this consultant from Switzerland, and I think he arrived by private jet, to be honest, because his daily rate was off the charts. I have visions of this guy arriving in a Gulfstream into Dublin, Rolls Royce, the works, because his daily rate was just so insane because there were so few people who could do Novell. It's just like crazy stuff. So
yeah, the Novell stuff was pretty premium at the day, because I did a couple customers who I helped them migrate from Novell with Citrix into Active Directory with Citrix, and the Novell stuff can be pretty pricey.
Yeah, it was just like any of these things. Like, if you think, it's like something like, a COBOL programmer today. Like, they would be on mega money because there's so few of them at this stage. And it's like, yeah, but there is still, like, I remember I used to work for a bank, and at one stage we had a whole room of these people. Like, but now, some of them have either potentially, retired, passed away, and it's just, but banks still have a lot of COBOL. So yeah, it's interesting with these kind of older technologies. Um, so I know that you have been involved. You've always been involved with community. So I pretty right in saying you used to be like a CUGC leader and that. So
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I was like one of the leaders of Kansas City, one of the co-leaders, and actually we were the one of the first groups to do the in-person meetings when CUGC launched, and then we teamed up with Omaha, and actually were the first ones to come up with the XL concept. So we kind of, between us and Omaha, we worked together and did the first one between Kansas City and Omaha and St. Joe, a little closer to Kansas City, and then that was the format used for the XLs going forward across the U.S.
yeah, and let's talk a bit about this, but where we're at now, because obviously last November we all got an email we didn't expect to get, and saying that thanks, thanks for everything. It's done. CGC is done, and we were all, well. I'm speaking for myself. I was completely shocked. I had no idea this was coming. And I got it, and then I was talking to other people, and it seemed like, and I went through a bunch of different emotions. I was shocked, I was annoyed. I put in like 6 or 7 years into the user group, and I was just like, well, that's done. And then I presume you probably went through similar emotions when you first heard the news yourself.
Yeah, it was a big shock, and change happens, and I don't fully understand why for the change, because there's still a huge need to have local groups and that kind of stuff. But I get it. I also understand that post pandemic, some of the local groups were kind of still struggling a little bit. The XLs were still pretty good attended. I know when we had our XL coming out of the pandemic, it was packed here.
Mm.
But I think that the local groups are starting to get the resurgence again, and things are coming back. So it was a big shock, and just
Yeah,
a direction of change for Citrix.
absolutely, because like as you said, the local groups were starting to come back. I think we had 2 weeks prior to the notice, we had our highest attendance ever as a local group. It was really great. So we were like gearing up for a brilliant 2024, and then we were like, actually, we don't know what's going on anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
and I suppose you and other people in the community then decided, well, what do we do next? And I suppose this is, so if you want to maybe how the whole world of EUC came to be, you know obviously, because there was that gap essentially.
Yeah, so the world of EUC has kind of been going in parallel with everything for about 5 years now, mostly just an online community. Slack, bridge to Discord, also bridge to the IRC channel for Citrix. When we first got together, Dave Brett, James Kingdon, Ryan Revord, myself came together and said, look, there's all these Slacks popping up. Let's kind of do a centralized one and then reach out to some of the other ones to see if they want to consolidate into ours. And so that's what happened. So we were able to consolidate several Slack instances into a single one. And kind of was just like a more online community. We were even bridged to the CUGC at one point before the direction of change happened. So we were kind of branching out there. We were talking internally as well about starting to do webinars and possibly do like some kind of online events, because we were basically online only. But then once the announcement came from Citrix about CUGC, Patrick Coble reached out to me and said, "Hey, let's see if we can either create a new community or build upon what the world of EUC is doing, and want to see if I wanted to work together on that." So with Patrick involved, and then we started talking with some of the admins in Slack. So Dave Brett was heavily involved as well with the talks and so forth early on. We started talking to Engage Strategies, who ran CUGC,
Mm.
because they've gone through and done all that, and it was one thing that we really didn't want to have to do all of the management of it. We just wanted to help guide the community and guide the group, and so we started saying, well, look, CUGC is no longer there. It was heavily Citrix. Well, it was only Citrix focused, in the ecosystem. And I was like, well, World of EUC, we're kind of agnostic, right? We don't care if you're Horizon, if you're Citrix, if you're Workspace, if you're AVD, if you're Parallels, we don't care. So let's do something agnostic, and that way we can kind of have more of the community involved. And so we started forming, and then we started talking like, well, we need some kind of board to kind of steer it. And most of us early on were still heavily Citrix. So we started saying we need to approach others we know in the community to kind of be more agnostic. And so Sean Massey, we reached out to, who's very heavy on the
Yep.
Horizon side of things, and
Mhm.
Stephen Wagner, and then Janet White as well, who's kind of in the middle there, what she works on. So we figured we had a good rounding out of different EUC technologies out there to have an agnostic board as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, when I first saw like the board of directors, I was like, oh, okay, so it's not just a bunch of ex-CUGC people. We've gone outside, and I think that's the really exciting thing for me about the whole world of EUC, and the fact that we have spawned all these now EUC groups around the world, that you can talk about anything. You're not focused. You had to kind of shoehorn things in to fit, and sometimes they didn't. And but now it's like, like if I take the example of the Irish Citrix user group, which was in March, they had like a Microsoft Copilot session, which is obviously, AI is huge, and
Yeah.
more and more. And I did one at the UC forum in London last year, which was about AI as well. So it just gives you a broader reach, and I think a way broader audience as well, because you can have the peoples from VMUGs, from whatever Microsoft background, or completely different. Like so I think it kind of, I think it came with a good time, because of there was so much flux around what we've been doing. And for so long it's been Citrix and VMware, but now there's so many other vendors in the
Yep.
space, so it made, even though it was hurt, it was, a shock when CUGC was dissolved. I think it's kind of an opportunity for everyone. And speaking as a vendor, we've always been platform agnostic. So it made sense for us to kind of sponsor the World of EUC, because, as you said, it's agnostic. Like us,
Yep.
we don't care what platform you're running on. So yeah, I think the timing was perfect. And as they say, timing is everything.
Yeah, I agree, and it's good too because yeah, I do think being agnostic helps us out. Also, being not tied to any vendor also helps us out as well. So we kind of control our destiny with the support of the community, and of course our sponsors like Liquidware, who was the first one to come on, and we're very thankful for that. So as long as we have our support and all that kind of stuff, we can keep going and keep things running and not beholden to any vendor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And speaking as a vendor who is involved, we would don't put any demands on you. You guys are doing a great job, and we'll help you whatever way we can. But yeah, and I think, as I said, this is the time for an independent EUC community group, and you guys have filled the gap perfectly. So we've touched on that, about some independent groups have been popping up all over the place, but you have some plans yourselves for some local groups as well.
Yeah, so our goal is to bring back local groups, which we're working on launching later this year. Our grand big goal is to have a centralized, multi-day in-person event if we can pull that off. If we don't have it this year, it definitely will happen next year. But those are the goals right now. We've going to be launching our podcast here very soon. We're already in the works with our diversity in tech as well. And then as you see, we've already gotten blogs out. We've already got our webinars going and that stuff as well. So the trains on the tracks are moving pretty well.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Like the in-person event, obviously there's with the larger vendors just abandoning their events, there is kind of those gaps, and there is. Now, I'm not saying, there is the likes of mainly in Europe, but they are coming back to North America this year. E2E,
Yep.
obviously, Steve has his event in Arizona, EUC Unplugged,
Yep.
but there's definitely, for kind of a wider oh, I hate to get, a Bright Forum type replacement for a kind of global event. And I think you guys are perfectly are in the right place to bring that about, given everyone's background. And you already have the support of the wider EUC community, so why not do it?
Yep, exactly. And that's kind of our goal is to kind of be like what Bryform was and kind of capture the essence of that. Be open, be agnostic, that kind of stuff, and hopefully we'll get there. So
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. As you said, yeah, no, and I think, as you said, you build it up on a local basis, and then you can go international after, or after that. So yeah, it's moving in the right direction. Um, so yeah, that's kind of, that's a good overview of where you're at. So is and how do you see it's been? I think it's been really well appreciated by the community, but have people given you direct feedback, or what?
yeah, so a couple things. We've already had, even early on when we first launched, we've already had some ex UGC leaders action asking us about local groups, whether it's in the US and a couple in Europe. So we've
Mm,
already had people reach out to us about that. So the excitement's there. We've also done a couple of things too to help get the input. We've always said we're open. Always feel free to reach out to any of the board or just ping us in the World of EUC, or through HQ at worldofeuc.org email. And so we've gotten emails and for input and that kind of stuff. What we also done too is we launched advisory boards. So like Liquidware, and I believe you're on the one for Liquidware. So for our founding partners is one advisory board, and then for our channel partners is another. So we do constantly take feedback from that to help steer the community, because we're just here to kind of help support it, but it's for the community by the community. So we're
yeah.
always welcome for input, always welcome to help steer where things go. It's kind of like an always evolving type thing, I would say.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and yeah, as you said, I am on the advisory board for as representing Liquidware. So yeah, as I said, you guys have been very open and transparent in everything you've done so far. Um, just kind of talking about, we touched on it briefly, but just to kind of, what's your view on the kind of general state of EUC? We've seen quite a lot of flux recently. It seems like it's getting a little bit more stable. I'm saying that now, but who knows what's going to happen? And the vendor space is definitely, I think, opened up, and we're seeing a lot of these kind of, I'm not going to say smaller, but different players entering. So it seems like it's getting quite exciting again. It was a little bit, hasn't been the best for the last, but it seems like that excitement and energy within EUC is building.
Yeah, it definitely is. For the longest time, it's always been Citrix and VMware, and then everyone else. And then lately, you've seen with the changes with VMware and Omnissa, and then also was the changes at Citrix, that it's kind of opened the door back up for other solutions out there to pick up some of that traction. So whether it's Parallels or WorkSpot or Dizion, all the solutions out there, or even Microsoft, is in there. And of course, Microsoft controls everything because majority of EUC is Windows based. So
Yeah.
Microsoft is doing a lot on the AVD side and the M365 side. So yeah, there's a lot going on. You have workspace, Amazon workspaces as well, or AWS workspaces also out there as well. You're seeing customers with. So there's a lot out there, and for those still in the field on the consulting side, it's a lot to consume to kind of help guide your customers as well. So it definitely is kind of a fun time even as well, because you're touching a lot more technology and a lot more solutions now.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd want to be a consultant now. It's a lot of technology. Now, in fairness, you can use AI to maybe learn better,
Yeah.
but that it's a pretty widespread of stuff these days. Back in when I was doing consulting, there was, you had Citrix and a few other products aside. But yeah, I'm quite happy to be out of the whole consulting game
Yeah.
personally. So
I think when I was doing it, I mainly did Citrix, VMware, and a little bit of pure RDSH, on that kind of side. A little bit of Parallels on that side. But that's about it. But yeah, definitely now there's a whole lot bigger stable of solutions out there to choose from.
yeah, and I suppose you touched on it there, the whole thing about Microsoft. Like, for years Microsoft couldn't care less about EUC, and they have just, obviously COVID was a big driver for where they went, but like, AVD is really taking off, and then you've seen the likes of Nerdio emerge and that kind of thing, and it's just, they've always been a juggernaut, but they've always kind of been in the background, whereas now they're very much at the
Yep.
forefront of everything that's going on in the EUC.
Yeah, and I agree too. And speaking of Nerdio, it seems like almost every AVD solution, Nerdio is along with it because it helps, AVD shine. So, they're enjoying the wave two as well with all the AVD deployments.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah. No, it seems like they're working very much in synergy together, and it's paying off, and Nerdy are expanding, and they're a real success story of this whole AVD thing. So
Yep,
yeah, that's
completely
cool.
agree. Yep.
Yeah, but so as I said, it's an interesting time for EUC, both from a community aspect and from a technology aspect. And one area which obviously you touched on a little bit there is AI, and you can't turn anywhere without hearing about the word AI. But I just wanted to get an idea of what's kind of your view on AI, and in particular, kind of in EUC, and any use cases that you've seen, or you think, wow, that could really help in this scenario.
Yeah, so I think AI is a great tool. First off, I think it's the best thing is how it's learned, how it's fed. What goes into it is the biggest part. Understanding how to use it and making sure that what you're getting out of it is correct. Like for example, I know from a admin side, it can probably help a lot with automation. Especially some of the scripting examples and that kind of stuff. But just make sure that you understand the code is giving you, and not just go out there and just run the code you see, because it cannot be right. It could be potentially cause some problems. But I think it's great from a
I've heard that a few times from
yeah.
some of our more development focused members of the UC community, who've even done sessions at events like E2E about I think it was Copilot for GitHub, and there's a few things that yeah, exactly. Like anything from AI, you don't want to just cut and paste it into whatever, because it lies to you.
Yeah.
you know, it's
Yeah.
called hallucinations, but it's lying.
or
Essentially,
or whatever's feeding it has given it bad information, and then that just keeps going and going. So
yeah,
um yeah, so I think it's a good thing to help out user workflows too. Maybe help desk to probably do some of the lower hanging fruit type stuff for now,
mm,
and then possibly depending on how they're using the AI and what solution it is, if it can help from a further standpoint from that. I think more of like I'm trying to think of the best way to say it, like more of the private repo side of it, to where the company can feed it and teach it itself and use that internally, and not kind of attach out to what's out there in public. I think that's a better use case for it from a corporate side of things,
yeah.
than just having the wild west out there and trying to pull in from what everyone's fed it.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of shadow IT going on with AI at the moment. Like, and you need to be aware. Like, if you upload a document to ChatGPT, they can then train their model on that.
Yep.
So you don't take your corporate NDA stuff and feed it into ChatGPT. Now, if you've got Copilot and it's integrated with your SharePoint, that's a difference, because
Yep.
that is within your tenant only. So you need to be aware of these things. I suppose one of my bugbears at the moment with AI is and I saw it. I was at a Microsoft event yesterday, and someone was doing a presentation, and they had a graphic with text, and the word was spelt wrong. And I've experienced this. I've tried to put text on graphics using AI. It's taken 9 attempts for it to spell
Mhm.
liquidware right. It does a U and then has a dot on the top of the U, and I tell it, no, this says, it just can't comprehend it for some reason. And I was just like, it was the word was like communication, and it had two eyes, and I'm like, did you not look at?
Yeah.
I was like, you've generated these images. It's in a room with 500 people, and you're representing your organization. And there's a typo. I know it is so. They probably went, "Oh my god, I've tried this 10 times. It won't work," and they just gave up. But it's just one of my kind of like gotchas when it comes to AI. It's like always check everything.
Yep.
It's yeah, it's a great aid. It's like, it's an example I've used several times. It's like, if you allow AI just pure access to, say, like an EUC environment, and say fine tune this, you're suddenly going to find that maybe your servers don't have any users on them because it has tuned it to be as if run efficiently. We've always said our job would be easier in EUC if we didn't have users. Exact use case there. So I think, there always has to be. And I talked to me and Eugene from Control Up talked about this one time at E2E, and we were both saying, there has to be that human interaction. You can't just let it go crazy and say,
Yeah.
okay, you just control those. No. It's like, okay, I'm about to knock 15 users off their server. Absolutely do not do that.
It reminds me
yeah,
of go ahead, sorry.
no, go. No. I was just saying that was a particular use case. Because obviously the way it thinks it's being efficient, but that's not a good user experience. You just suddenly get booted off the Citrix server or the cloud host, wherever you happen to be. So yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of kind of like Ultron, in Marvel, where he kind of, he wanted to end mankind, or in the Avengers, or even with Happy Hogan in Iron Man 3, when he was like Pepper's right hand man at Stark Industries. He's like, the problem with human resources is the human element.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that too, as well, that it's going so far that it's going to cause a bad user experience. It's going to, reduce scalability, or even reduce usability completely, trying to be so efficient. So yeah, that exactly reminds me of those type of things.
Like, as I said, I did a presentation on AI last year, and the first slide I had was the T1000 and the Skynet logo, and then someone came up to me, like, and they were really passionate. He said, "Why didn't you do war games?" And I'm like, "Well, from my personal experience, when I think of AI, I think of the T1000 and Skynet. I'm sorry if yours is war games, but
Yeah.
like, and like, this person had a 5-minute rant at me, and I was like, okay, this is just my opinion."
But they're both good examples, right?
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm not saying, but War Games was not the one that came. The one that came to me was the T1000 with the silver body and the
Yep.
red eyes. Now, maybe it was because I was watching that when it was completely inappropriate, but it was the 80s. So, kids watched movies. You went to a video shop, they didn't ask you what age you were when you were getting something out. So that got imprinted in my mind. But yeah, so I think definitely as an aid with everything we do, it's great. And I love the kind of even the kind of day-to-day things that you can do, with Copilot, like, give me your summary of all the emails, or I attend this meeting, I was definitely paying attention, but I really want to know what my actions or the
Yep.
tasks, or even like, we have one tool that we use internally, and it's the same thing. It does that. Like, I might be able to attend that meeting, so give me a summary of the meeting, and is there any actions for me? So yeah, I think it's a really exciting time, and I think EUC and AI together, there's a lot of cool stuff coming down the line. And I think, the world of EUC, there's lots of exciting stuff as well. So yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Jarian. I wish you the best of luck. And as I said, we're here to support you in your journey, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with in terms of, bringing back local events and a potential kind of larger scale event, which really excites me, because it's always great to get together with everyone in the community.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on, James, today. And once again, thank you to Liquidware for supporting us, and being our first sponsor, and a founding partner. And thank you to all of our founding partners and sponsors out there. And thank you for all the community support. And if one action item I could leave for listeners is to, if you haven't signed up on the worldofeuc.org, please do, because yes, we were traditionally Slack, but we're not just Slack. And we have a lot more users in Slack than we do on the membership site. And so we kind of want to balance that out. Plus, you'll get a lot of the information on local events, webinars, podcasts, and hopefully our big main event too as well. So, please make sure you go sign up for worldofeuc.org.
Yep. And we will put the link in the show notes as well. So thanks very much, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this episode. See you on the next one.